When I think of our world with the conflicts that we have, extreme poverty, people who are continually enslaved, and war between countries, I think of conflict, and I think that the thing that can heal that the most is empathy. I think that if we're able to step out of our own shoes and into another's and imagine what it must be like to have one's dignity stripped away, that it becomes difficult to turn one's face away from resolving the issue and finding a better route. Well, when I began this project, the reason I did it was because, for one thing, people were not yet fully aware of modern day slavery when I began the project. And I felt that by making images of people, no matter how dire their circumstance, that if I could photograph the dignity in them, in their peril, that viewers, before the piece, would want to reach out a hand and make a difference. So my work, generally speaking, is all about connection. I mean, the greater umbrella of my work is about documenting cultures vulnerable to change in more than 100 countries on 6 continents. And it is intended to inspire unity. So what would the world be like if, instead of being afraid of one another's differences, we were instead in awe or in a form of wonder or curiosity about the differences? And I thought, when I learned about slavery, and it, that knowledge hit me like a freight train, that if I was able to go out into the world and make images of people in their dignity, in settings that are frankly horrific and unbearable, that visual strength would viscerally connect to any viewer, and that viewer perhaps would want to raise a hand and make a difference. Well, I think it's quite a shaking moment to see people who are forced to do horrific things against their will. To think that people, innocent people, have been lied to and exploited and forced to do something that they do not want to do, that they are not paid for, and that they have no choice to walk away from, and mostly that they're under threat of violence constantly. Being in brick kilns where the temperatures are 130 degrees Fahrenheit, and seeing people constantly stacking bricks on their heads one after the other, and walking mechanically to a truck to unload them, only to come back again without pause and do that again and again and again for 17, 18 hours a day. That is heartbreaking. And there's young children, there's elders, there's entire families, or going into brothels where you see women that are just really slaves. I mean, they are slaves, and they are in the sex trade, and they have been trafficked, and they are intended to please so many customers a day. And when you see that sort of thing, especially as a photographer such as myself, who is there strictly to bear witness, and not to come in and pull them out or physically make a difference because the abolitionists are doing that, but to stand there and just witness, just bear witness, knowing that my gift is to share the images, is quite heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. And going out into the field, I should mention that I was given very specific instructions not to offer money, not to offer help, not to do anything that would raise any unrest within their experience of life and forced labor. And I really had to come to grips with putting all of my trust in the NGO, Free the Slaves, who I was collaborating with, to bring them to liberation, for indeed they would succeed in it far better than I ever could. But it is a treacherous, it's a treacherous feeling to witness such pain. Well, I believe that art can and does change the world. I mean, every day I have the opportunity of seeing people stand before an image and literally be transformed. I remember meeting a woman in Texas at an exhibition, and she had been standing before one of my images of a woman in, fully cloaked galaba. Kafkan, and she turned to me and she said, "What's the mission of your work?" And I said, "Well, why do you ask?" And she just remarked that she'd been standing in front of this woman that was fully covered, and that she recognized how much prejudice she held in her heart. And yet, by standing before this person, she started to feel connected to her and this tremendous love. And with that, she actually began to cry. And I looked at her and I said, "Well, that's my mission." Because I actually do believe when we are viscerally moved by something, we have the ability to change and transcend and transform things in ourselves that allow us to make change in the world. Generally, with the greater body of my work, which is about human dignity and inspiring unity, I work most frequently with a 4x5 view camera. So it's a 19th century view camera that I have the big hood over my head and big sheets of transparency film that are individually loaded. In that capacity, the work is very methodical and it's very meditative, and I actually will study light and how things move throughout the day before I'll ever make an image. Doing cause-related work, especially on the front lines of slavery, when my life is certainly in danger and other people who are enslaved, their lives are at risk. My windows of opportunity to actually make images were often only 10 or 15 minutes at a time. And the abolitionists that I was with were, on the perimeters, constantly watching out for if the traffickers or the managers or the slaveholders were coming in, and I'd have to run very quickly. So that changed the game for me, and I have decided to work with a very small, agile 35mm camera. In instances of working in the field on the front lines, everything for me is instinctual, and it's really about just connecting with the people. So it was very fast. I think composing an image is quite innate to me. I think that connecting with people is extremely innate to me, and finding that expression before depressing the shutter it comes very naturally to me. So I'm not someone who makes 30 images of one subject. I may make 1 to 3 images and that's it. And I rely on just being very present in the moment, and I'm not really thinking about what I'm doing. I'm really there connecting and trusting the elements kind of surrounding me and surrounding whatever image that's going to become. I think that art has its own enormous inertia in a human being's life, and I think that inertia and the power of art is literally unstoppable. It will never stop. It will find many tributaries and rivers and pathways to go, including social media. And I think social media is quite remarkable. I mean, I think it's amazing how many images are on Instagram, Facebook, all of these elements of online capacity. And I actually think in many ways it makes the experience richer, because people are inundated with so many different types of imagery, and whether it's a photograph or a painting or an object, like whatever it is, I celebrate all of it, actually. And I think there's great power in literally millions and billions of people able to share ideas and images, and how each of those have the power to alter our lives. You can see one image of someone enslaved, and literally your life will change, and it may go down a different course because you've witnessed that image. And a piece of art that evokes an emotional response and engenders empathy or love or beauty, instantly someone viewing it will viscerally feel that. And I think that is art's power. It's to transform us, and we have a choice to create art that allows us to feel that beauty, or frankly it could be created to feel horror. And it's my mission is really about, creating awareness and empathy and engendering change so that we all have dignity and peace in our lives.